Hey folks, how you doing today? This is January the
14th.
Yes.
And we're looking at Beatles historical facts and events that happened on January 14th throughout the years of their career. Such as in 1964, it was on this date that the Beatles departed for Paris for an 18-day engagement at the Olympia Theatre. 18 days in a row.
Can you imagine?
At this place in Paris. So obviously huge fandom in France for the Beatles at that time.
There's a film of that too. A snippet appears on Ron Howard's new film, but the entire one of the entire performances was filmed for that in black and white. And it's interesting as well. There was no screaming fans. People sat quietly and clapped at the end of each song. So that's kind of interesting in terms of Beatles history, because most of the time people couldn't hear what the Beatles were singing. Yeah.
True. Also on January 14th, 1969, the Beatles had still been in the studio every day recording and rehearsing for the Get Back sessions and the movie. But at this time, still George is not even in the band. He's sort of unofficially quit days ago, and they're trying to deal with it. So then they're like, okay, well, can we rehearse without him? So John shows up at least. But then John says he took too many drugs, and he hasn't even slept yet. So he would have been a mess.
He would have been a mess. But interesting enough, John Lennon said, to heck with George. We'll get Eric Clapton in the band. And that's, that almost happened, right? Can you imagine if the Beatles with Eric Clapton? It could have easily happened. That's what John suggested. But George did come back, obviously, later on. And also on this day, talking about Paul McCartney and Wings, they released their Mullet Kintyre single, which became their biggest single of all time, selling, I think, what the heck was it that they sell? It was over 2 million copies in the UK alone, I think. Mullet Kintyre. And the flip side of that was Girls' School, which at that time was my favorite song. I preferred that over Mullet Kintyre. Girls' School, which is kind of a cute little song.
It was actually this date, January 14th, that the song became the biggest selling single of all time in the UK. So it had already been out for a few months.
That's true.
Also on this date, January 14th, 1980, Paul was now in New York on his way to Japan, and he called up John Lennon to have a meeting. Now this is the year that John Lennon would eventually die. And so the story is that Paul wanted to get together with John so they could share some dynamite weed. Okay, so if that's true, it's interesting. And then they say that Yoko had taken the call and refused that Paul wasn't allowed to speak to John. So is that John's decision, Yoko's decision? I
guess we'll
never
never know, but it's unfortunate. It would have been nice for them to get together again. You know that the Beatles, actually, if you look at, here's some interesting facts. Paul McCartney had just signed with Columbia Records, I believe, late 79, early 1980. In his clause, in his contract with Columbia, he put a clause that said, the only way this record deal can be broken, or this agreement can be broken, is if the Beatles reunite. I thought that was quite interesting, because they were planning on a new project called The Long and Winding Road, which 20 years later became the anthology, without John, obviously. But they were planning on doing this film in 79, 80, called The Long and Winding Road, which was about the Beatles' career, right? So, would they have reunited? Was it actually in the works? And also, the last thing I'll throw into this mix is on John's Geffen contract. I believe he wrote a similar clause, maybe not quite worded that same way. He was also in the process of taking actions to sue the band Beatlemania, because he said no one should be doing the Beatles except the Beatles, and there's a good chance they could reunite. So who knows? There could have been a chance there for a reunion of some kind, and it's too bad Paul didn't make it to see John when he was in New York on his way to Japan. I still remember that. It's just really unfortunate.
Yep, there you go. Not a too exciting day. Some highs and lows for the Beatles on January 14th. All right, well, thanks for watching, and we'll see you again tomorrow.
All right, take care, guys.
So my dear friends, come back when you can.